Hello, my name is Victoria Schock, and this is my writing synthesis project on the fundamentals of writing. The fundamentals of writing include balanced literacy, writing workshop, the writing process, and the 6 traits of writing. We will begin with balanced literacy in writing. Balanced literacy in writing includes interactive writing, shared writing, and independent writing. These 3 need to be used and worked on equally to create balance and promote literacy in your students' writing. Interactive writing is when the teacher and the students work together to create a piece of writing. This helps the student to be able to visualize the writing process and hear and see the thought process that the teacher also goes through to write. Not necessarily with my case study student, but with my placement class, the students and my mentor teacher worked together to create a story about how they were looking for their gingerbread man. They worked together to create the story, publish it out in the hallway, and then go on a search for their gingerbread man they created. Shared writing is an experience where the teacher writes with the students. It is essentially teaching writing through writing. Independent writing is an experience where the students get to write all on their own. This is important to the development of literacy in the students. The writing workshop process includes the mini lesson and introduction, writing time, conferencing, and sharing time. The workshop begins with a mini lesson. This lesson starts the thinking process for the students. The goal for the teacher is to guide the student to come up with what they want to write on their own, but there is a certain topic that they are teaching for, and that is what the lesson is about. Writing time is the time the student has to write on their own. They have just had their mini lesson and have a new aspect of writing on their mind, but they are still writing independently and using their own ideas when writing. Usually in my lesson, I would designate an amount of time to write, about 5 or 7 minutes, but my case study student loved to write, and so I would always end up telling her, let's write for 5 minutes, but if you want to, you are welcome to write for longer than that. If you compared her to someone older, she wasn't very fast at writing, but she would diligently sit there and write. One time she wrote for a solid 12 minutes. She really enjoyed this part of the lesson. Conferencing is the time that students have to reflect on their own writing and think about what they wrote. Sharing time is the time in which students actually get to share what they wrote. When there is a conference over what they wrote, they don't get to just share it, but this time allows them to share their work with no discussion and just the enjoyment of getting to write and getting to share it. This was my case study student's favorite part of the process. When we would finish our lesson for the day, since the class was out of the room, my student got the chance to share each part of her story with her teacher. Next, we have the writing process. The writing process is similar to the writer's workshop, but it's more focused on the written piece itself, while the writer's workshop is focused more on the writer and making the writer better at their craft. The writing process includes rehearsing and pre-writing, drafting, revisiting, revising, editing, sharing, and publishing. Rehearsing and pre-writing. The rehearsal and pre-writing process allows the students to come up with ideas to write about. It is hard to just go straight into writing when you have no ideas. Pre-writing helps to sort out ideas when you might have in your head and get them down where you can pick and choose. Drafting takes the pre-writing ideas and turns them into coherent thoughts in the form of sentences and even paragraphs. This way, the writer or the student gets a chance to get their thoughts out, but don't have to have them in a perfect order or perfectly grammatically correct. Revising takes the draft that was written and allows the writer to go back and fix ideas, add in parts, and rearrange the writing to something that they are more comfortable with. My case study student wanted to do this with her story, so we made a little bit of a game out of it. Because in our lessons, sometimes her writing got out of order, so I took all the sentences she wrote and individually had them on strips of paper. We then worked to put them in order the way they were meant to go. She was excited to see her story start to come together instead of just being a jumble of paragraphs and lines she had written from before. Editing is correcting for grammar and for sentence structure. This is something that I believe is part of the process that doesn't need to be hounded on in the younger grades. If this is what is highly focused on in the younger grades, it can tend to discourage students from writing confidently. If they have marks everywhere for things that are seen as wrong or incorrect, this could lower their self-esteem and make them not want to write. Sharing is the part of the writing process that involves finally getting to share that finished product. After getting to revise and edit the draft that was originally made, the writer gets to share their written piece. Publishing is the final step of the writing process. This is the process of wrapping up the final product and sharing it with more than just the people it was shared with during the sharing step. The last fundamental of writing is the 6 traits of writing. These are the pieces that are needed in a piece of writing to make it a successful piece and bring the audience into your work. These traits include ideas, organization, voice, word choice, sentence fluency, and conventions. Ideas are the main message of the writing. All writing needs a main point or main focus to it. Without it, the writing would just be a jumbled mess of sentences with no heading whatsoever. The organization of a piece is the structure of it. Without a solid structure, a building would fall down. It would also not make sense to put the basement on the second floor of a house. Like a house, a piece of writing needs to be in the right order and in a logical sequence. Voice is the author's speaking that comes out through the writing. We all have a certain way we say our words or just a certain way we talk in general, and it is important for that to come out in our writing. Without voice, our writing would just sound bland and uninteresting. Word choice refers to the words the author chooses to put into the work. An extended vocabulary can help in this sense because it can keep seed words such as said or very from becoming overused and making the story sound boring or repetitive. Sentence fluency refers to how the sentences of a story flow. This was another reason I played the ordering game with my student when it came to her story sentences. Her story had been a little choppy and all over the place. She knew how she wanted her story to sound, but as she was writing it, her brain would work faster than the pen, and she ended up only getting bits and pieces written at a time. We rearranged everything to make it all flow, and it helped the story get even better at the end because the sentences had a flow to them. Finally, conventions refer to the correctness of different parts of the story, such as spelling, punctuation, correct capitalization, grammar, and separating paragraphs. This is the last thing that needs to be gone over with students because this is the editing process of their story, and it is what makes their story a final draft.